Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: amid Washington's woes, America looks like an unreliable ally. Just ask Ukraine. Communist rappers are luring China's disgruntled youth. China Evergrande's founder, from rags to riches to under investigation. China is gaining long-coveted role in Arctic. What the fall of the world's factory means for global supply chains. Amid Washington's woes, America looks like an unreliable ally. Just ask Ukraine. The Sydney Morning Herald. The U.S. House of Representatives has abandoned support for Ukraine in order to keep funding the U.S. government. This decision has caused financial and political shock to Ukraine and is seen as disastrous symbolically to U.S. allies. The U.S. has previously approved exceptional levels of assistance to Ukraine with $176 billion in military and other support, more than total aid from all European nations combined. President Joe Biden has asked Congress for $20.6 billion in support, but the House has agreed to zero. The opposition to further assistance to Ukraine is largely from Republican voters, with 71% opposed. This change in sentiment is attributed to war fatigue and the influence of former President Donald Trump. Trump has politicized support for Ukraine as a partisan plaything and has expressed his affection for Vladimir Putin. The U.S. is becoming an increasingly unreliable ally, which means that countries like Australia need to have a backup plan. Communist rappers are luring China's disgruntled youth. Economist. China's Communist Youth League, CYL, is undergoing a transformation, using rappers and social media to appeal to young people, as the party struggles to recruit new members. The CYL indoctrinates Chinese citizens aged between 14 and 28 in the party's ideology, as well as spreading the party's message to young people with no political ties. President Xi Jinping has expressed concern that the CYL has become out of touch with young Chinese, particularly as the country's youth face economic stagnation, unemployment, and high housing costs. The party's youth wing has therefore turned to social media and rappers to appeal to young people. The league has been releasing slick music videos featuring rappers, such as GAI, and has been using social media accounts to spread its message. However, while nationalist rhetoric excites many young Chinese, it is unclear how successful the CYL has been in recruiting new members. Membership has fallen by nearly 20% since Xi became China's leader, and the league's efforts to expand membership in private firms and NGOs may not be enough to reverse this trend. China Evergrande's founder, from rags to riches to under investigation. New York Times. China Evergrande founder Hui Ka-yen is being investigated by authorities for suspected criminal behavior. Hui, once one of China's wealthiest people, saw his real estate company collapse under a massive debt burden of more than $300 billion. Evergrande filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. in August in an attempt to settle its debts with overseas bondholders. The investigation into Hui comes as a blow to his rags-to-riches story, having been raised in rural poverty and building Evergrande into a property behemoth. China is gaining long-coveted role in Arctic. Wall Street Journal. Russia is turning to China for help in developing the Arctic as Western energy companies try to pull out of Russian projects. Russia has joined China in naval exercises and maritime security arrangements in the far north. It has also looked to it for aid in technology such as satellite data to monitor ice conditions. Russia is permitting larger tankers without so-called ice classification, raising fears of spills in the remote region. The volume of crude oil being shipped through the Northern Sea route, which traverses the Arctic from northwestern Russia to the Bering Strait, has shot up in recent weeks. Two larger tankers recently arrived at a Chinese port, each carrying more than 1 million barrels of oil. China has proposed a polar Silk Road to make use of the shorter distance to ship goods via the Arctic, avoiding choke points at the Suez Canal and Malacca Strait. Russia has changed its Arctic policy document in February to emphasize access to all foreign states, opening the door to China. What the fall of the world's factory means for global supply chains. Telegraph. As Western companies look to diversify their supply chains away from China, Central Eastern Europe, CEE, is emerging as an attractive alternative. The region, which includes countries such as Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, offers lower labor costs compared to China, as well as a more favorable business environment. Industrial real estate firms are reporting increased demand for warehouse space in CEE, as companies seek to nearshore production and reduce risk in their supply chains. Foreign direct investment in manufacturing in CEE is growing steadily, with Hungary experiencing a rise from 2.03% to 3.65% of GDP between 2016 and 2022. Demand is particularly strong from electronics and electric vehicle (EV) companies. Hungary is Europe's second-largest producer of EV batteries, and companies including Audi, Samsung, and Volvo have increased their investments in the region. Chinese firms are also looking to invest in CEE, in order to be closer to the European market and to reduce exposure to political risks in China. Can India-Europe corridor rival China's Belt and Road? BBC. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, at the G20 summit in Delhi. The transportation and communication network aims to bolster links between Europe and Asia through rail and shipping networks. The project is seen by many as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, which has faced criticism for its lack of transparency and environmental impact. However, IMEC is not expected to match the scale or ambition of BRI, which has over $1 trillion of investments and over 150 countries as partners. While IMEC could improve relations with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, it could hurt relations with Egypt, as it will compete with the Suez Canal. The success of IMEC will depend on the complex logistics of the project, including the creation of a new customs and trade architecture to harmonize paperwork, as well as navigating geopolitical complexities. However, if IMEC becomes a reality, it could contribute to a safer and more habitable planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the six-dimensional world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Let's dive right into it. Firstly, it seems that the United States' reliability as an ally is being called into question. With the recent decision by the U.S. House of Representatives to abandon support for Ukraine, it has left the country in shock and symbolically damaged the trust of U.S. allies. This change in sentiment can be attributed to war fatigue and the influence of former President Donald Trump. It's clear that the U.S. needs to regain its standing as a reliable ally, as countries like Australia may need to consider alternative plans. In China, the Communist Youth League is trying to appeal to the country's disgruntled youth by using rappers and social media. The party is facing difficulties in recruiting new members, especially among young Chinese who are facing economic stagnation and high housing costs. The league's use of social media and rappers in music videos is an attempt to connect with young people, but it remains to be seen if they will be successful in reversing the decline in membership. Moving on to China, Evergrande, its founder Hui Ka-yen is now under investigation for suspected criminal behavior. This comes as a blow to Hui's rags to riches story, as his real estate company collapsed under a massive debt burden. Evergrande's bankruptcy filing in the U.S. was an attempt to settle its debts with overseas bondholders. It's a reminder that success can be fleeting, even for those who have achieved great wealth. Meanwhile, China is gaining a long-coveted role in the Arctic, as Russia turns to its neighbor for help in developing the region. Western energy companies are pulling out of Russian projects, and China is stepping in to fill the void. This partnership includes naval exercises, technology sharing, and the shipping of crude oil through the Arctic. China's proposed Polar Silk Road could provide a shorter route for shipping goods and reduce reliance on traditional choke points. It's a strategic move that could have significant implications for global trade and influence in the region. In the realm of global supply chains, Central Eastern Europe is emerging as an attractive alternative to China. Countries like Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary offer lower labor costs and a more favorable business environment. With Western companies looking to diversify their supply chains and reduce risk, there is increased demand for warehouse space in the region. This trend is particularly strong in the electronics and electric vehicle industries. It's a shift that could reshape the global manufacturing landscape and provide new opportunities for countries in Central Eastern Europe. Lastly, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC. Seen as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative, IMEC aims to improve transportation and communication links between Europe and Asia. While it may not match the scale of BRI, IMEC could still have a significant impact on regional relations and trade. However, the success of this project will depend on overcoming logistical challenges and navigating geopolitical complexities. And there you have it, folks. These are the latest stories shaping our world today. As always, I'm eager to hear your thoughts and answer any questions you may have. So, what are your thoughts on these developments? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.